morning, everybody, and welcome to this Thursday morning's webinar. I am Chloe Tetro. I'm the health coach with ReadyCare, and for this morning, we're going to be looking at the topic of resilience, bouncing back stronger, with a very particular caveat around that. So we'll have a look at what resilience is, why it's important, what having it versus not having it looks like. We'll touch a little bit on internal locus of control, which is a particular way to just basically say when we feel in control versus when the outside world feels in control. And we'll finish up a little bit around neuroplasticity, as we usually do. So to begin off, I suppose, with regards resilience, what is it? Is it pertinent to your lifestyle? And to look at that basically, when you face setbacks, or unexpected changes, are you somebody who finds themselves overwhelmed or anxious? How would you typically react when things don't go as planned? Would you dwell on a situation, or would you proactively look for solutions? These are all different ways to know if you're a good candidate for building resilience out a little bit. Are there particular challenges in your life right now that are causing persistent stress, disrupting the routine, and how are you dealing with these? So resilience, to kind of push it quite simply, is the ability to recover and adapt positively after experiencing adversity, stress, change. It enables people to navigate quite difficult situations while maintaining emotional stability and functioning effectively, which is, vital and crucial. So resilient individuals accept setbacks as part of life. They'll use problem-solving skills and they'll find meaning in challenges. They don't avoid stressors. They don't go, blinkers up. Instead, what they'll do is manage the stressors and grow from them. And building that kind of muscle, so to speak, that internal muscle of resilience involves cultivating emotional awareness, positive thinking, and strong social connections. Now, why it's important, and I'll put up my little Sisyphus slide if I can add him. There he is. Why it's important. It's basically through a lot of life, we can feel like we're pushing the boulder up the hill like Sisyphus. And when there's a necessity or when we find ourselves in that context and environment, what it can do is bring up chronic stress, chronic anxiety, chronic depression. And this is, I'll touch on the caveat that I was going to say with regards to this talk. So the word resilience has bounced around quite a bit at the moment. It's the kind of hot new potato, on the likes of LinkedIn, in particular, work settings. And I think what I wanted to say from the get-go with this particular talk is when I'm approaching resilience for today and when I'm giving information, I really would hope that it's taken away with regards how to adapt to make your experience of your everyday better. And there's a dark side to the word resilience that I've definitely noticed in online spaces and work-based spaces where employees and individuals can be told to gain resilience. There's a lack of resilience. People need to be more resilient, etc., etc. And it can sometimes be somewhat weaponized to blame the individual for having a very normal reaction to a very abnormal stimulus. So if you find yourself in systems that are exceedingly stressful, where there seems to be no let up of this type of chronic stress, and that the system itself or the context and environment that you find yourself in, it's not always work-based, sometimes we can hold on to particular relationships in our lives that bring us chronic stress, anxiety, and that feeling like we're pushing a boulder up the hill. So the caveat that I wanted to give right off the bat with this particular talk is Resilience is not the answer to if you find yourself in a draining and emotional situation that maybe is best looked at in terms of should you be in this situation in the first place. So that's something I want to say right off the bat, that if there's a system, whatever that system may be, that you are finding exceedingly overwhelming, exceedingly stressful, and bringing up lots of anxiety, the first thing I would say for anybody experiencing that is this system serving you? You know, is this system something that you need to be part of? Is it something that you have to find yourself in? Is it a relationship that you have to find yourself in? Are there parameters around that system that are best looked at? And the other slight caveat that I would give is if you find yourself, excuse me, in situations of high stress, high overwhelm, and high anxiety time and time again, what I would usually say is if you're not seeking support in terms of some level of counseling or therapy, that might be something that's useful. So that's just getting that out of the way if you do find yourself in that type of system. But on a more kind of day-to-day basis, why resilience is vital and why I think it's a good topic to start to explore is our day-to-day world and living is quite volatile and changes very, very quickly. So there's this massive, massive demand on individuals to be able to cope with adaptability and change at levels that are unprecedented, really. And why resilience is important is because it helps people to bounce back from adversity and reduces the risk of that chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. So it's all about your experience in this. I'm not thinking of this as how do we grease the gears of people? How do we grease that gear so that you can maintain this insane level of productivity? And it's not around that. It's really about your experience of inhabiting that system. Being able to have that level of resilience is going to foster well-being. It's going to enable you to pursue your goals even when times are uncertain. People that have higher levels of resilience, and I'll just start to say that it's not a personality trait. It's something that people foster. It's something that if you grew up in an environment where it was fostered, yes, you'll have that little bit of an advantage as an adult, but it's something that can be learned and can be trained, which we'll look at a little bit in the neuroplasticity part of this. People with resilience can maintain optimism and emotional stability while managing those setbacks and finding opportunities to grow and develop themselves. Their ability to recover benefits not only personal health, which, like, when we look at the impact of not having resilience, things like that stress, anxiety, and depression, all of these conditions affect our personal health, our personal mental health greatly. So if we know that we are existing in an environment and context that has all of these very high demands on us, if we know that already, there's an opportunity to give ourselves the best opportunity to succeed in that environment by slightly overcorrecting. We know that's the environment that we're in. We know that there's a level of proactivity that is going to help our experience in that environment. And this will lead to healthier relationships, better productivity. And I'm not just talking about, output in work, even though that is important. It's important to feel proud and on top of your work and that you're performing well, but it's not the be all and end all. It's going to help your decision-making skills. It's going to help your life satisfaction overall, and you're feeling that you are in control of your life, not that life is happening to you and that every day is that pushing and struggling. So I mentioned a little bit there about internal versus external locus of control. And to put it very, very simply, internal locus of control is the belief that one's actions significantly impact life outcomes. For instance, a student or an individual at work with an internal locus of control who performs poorly on an exam or a task might attribute their score to their own lack of preparation. And what they'll do is they'll look at what they've done and they'll go, okay, well, that didn't really work very well. What can I do better next time? And they resolve to prepare a little bit next time. So it removes that kind of judgment of, oh God, I'm a terrible person, I'm a bad person, bad things keep happening to me, why can't I just catch a break? Those kind of narratives, which are really normal, up to a point for us to fall into. They're very comfortable for us to fall into, this kind of woe is me. But really it takes away your power. That type of thinking takes away the power. That external locus of control will really be identified by that belief that external forces, the fates, the weather, the gods, the traffic, whatever it may be, bad luck, they all determine your quality of life. Now, to be honest with you, I would say a measured out approach would be predominantly an internal locus of control, and then hanging up your hat a little bit sometimes and saying, look, I'm not all powerful. I'm great, but I'm not all powerful. Sometimes there are external things and I can't do a tap about it. I'd prepared to beat the band and then this other thing came up altogether and I've been blindsided. It's not the end of the world. But it's really to acknowledge that even your attitude towards a certain task will really, really it really change your experience. And this is all about your experience in inhabiting your body, inhabiting your day-to-day life. When individuals have an internal locus of control, they're often more resilient because they believe that their actions directly influence results. They'll feel empowered about that. They feel that they can shape their futures and they can proactively tackle challenges. So when setbacks invariably occur, what they'll do is they'll focus on factors that they can control. What can I do about this right now? Can I do something about this right now? If I can't do something about it right now, well, there's nothing I can do about this right now. That sort of thought process. Then on the flip side, people that have total external locus of control might feel absolutely, totally powerless in adversity. And assuming that thought process, that mindset, that their world and their actions and what happens to them essentially is totally beyond their influence. What that leads to is a real sense of overwhelm, a sense of powerlessness, a sense of, hopelessness, actually, that sense of hopelessness, and that the struggle becomes too difficult and it can really, really chip away at people time and time again. So ultimately recognizing that we have the ability to influence our outcome, that builds that muscle of resilience. And it provides the confidence to adapt to changes outside of our circumstances. Without succumbing to stress, without that feeling of overwhelm. And it builds our ability to have greater coping mechanisms. So one of the great parts to start to exercise, if it's not a practice that you're in already, and for those of you that have younger people in your lives, when we chat to them, we naturally take on the mantle of reframing failure. So if somebody comes to you and they said, gosh, I didn't quite get, I had a sports game and I really practiced and I just didn't get that last shot. We don't say, ha, well, some of us might, but most of us don't. When we have children or when we're around other people, it may not be young people, but when we have people that we care about in our lives, we're much, much better at taking on that reframing of failure. And what I mean by that, it involves changing how we perceive setbacks. It views them as learning opportunities instead of personal shortcomings. So in most cases, not all cases, depending on the person that you are and how you're feeling that day, in most cases, when people that we care about tell us that they, tried but didn't succeed, we're more likely to say, okay, well, focus on the things that you did do right. And, you did so well and it's not the end of the world. And, okay, you didn't get that last shot. What type of kick was it? I don't know anything about sports. I don't know anything about sports. What type, is there a way that you can practice that? Fantastic. Look, focus on the positives of it, etc., etc. So this particular mindset, if we just get a little bit better at trying it on for ourselves, it really, really helps people to see failure. Failure happens all the time. There's that great TED talk, Fail Forward. Failure will happen. It's impossible for us to go through life without failure. It's the ability to take failure as, okay, that method didn't work. How do I get around it? That particular ability, that is resilience. That is learning from setbacks. It's not taking them as a personal affront, a meaning that we're lesser just because we encounter failure. The world is full of failure. It's a natural part of life. And there's a massive danger for our sense of well-being in taking a natural occurring part of life and the human experience as meaning that we're somehow lesser than, that we're bad, we're never going to succeed. It's like taking any other natural phenomenon that happens outside of ourselves as this naturally occurring force and going, oh God, the leaves are falling from the tree, that must mean I'm a bad person. It's a silly example, but just to put it in a kind of example. So when there is resilience, people analyze failures to refine their own skill set or strategies rather than dwelling on what went wrong. And that approach fosters what's called a growth mindset. It's not seeing things as fixed, black and white, all good, all bad. It's going, life is made up of somewhere in the middle. And there's a bit of tough love comes in, actually, that I'd say for people that do see themselves as all or nothing. And I fight hard not to be one of these people. But so a reframe that I was recently told about this all or nothing fixed mindset thinking is basically when we think, unless I can do this perfectly, I'm not going to do it at all. We're giving ourselves an out. We're absolutely giving ourselves an out. It's this lovely Jedi mind trick we give ourselves to not try. And it's a really comforting and value-driven way for us to go, that's because I've got very high standards for myself. I want it to be perfect or nothing. We think, okay, perfection, that must mean I place high value on something. But really, essentially, because it's impossible, you've just given yourself an out for not even trying. And I remember when someone said that to me, I got a slight stamp the foot of, well, okay, I don't like the way that's landed, but essentially there's a massive element of truth in that. So to bring it back, sorry, I go off on little tangents sometimes. Reframing failure positively will help us to reduce that self-criticism and stay focused on goals, build that resilience needed for long-term success. And anything that you really, really have a goal about that's important to you, tie failure into it. Expect that you will fail with no judgment, with all the compassion and grace in the world. Expect that you will fail because you will at some point. And that's okay. When we make room for the likes of failure in our plans, it means that we actually are serious about our goals, that we don't go at the slightest little pebble I hit with the bike, I'm going to fall off. That's it. I tried. It can be perfect or it can be nothing. That really is a sure sign that what you have set yourself as a goal may not be as important, or you may not be ready as ready as you think that you may be. And a really good way to honor those goals for yourself is to tie failure into your plans. So a little bit of research around statistics and research on resilience. I think I've got my same little slide up. I'll change that just for the sake of not having it on the screen this entire time. So particular research around resilience, and there's lots out there, but just to ground this a little bit. So why it's important to quality of life, and we've touched on depression, we've touched on anxiety and stress in the face of no resilience. So studies suggest, shockingly enough, that resilient people are less likely to develop chronic depression or anxiety after adversity, which helps to reduce the prevalence of mental health issues. And without even getting to a point where there is a mental health issue, I just think of it as your day-to-day life experience. The satisfaction and fulfillment from your day-to-day becomes a lot better, and who wouldn't want that? Resilient employees are often more productive, adapt better to change, and have lower rates of burnout, which can save the company lots of money down the line if you're somebody in HR or in the hiring capacities. And there's 2021 study by the American Psychologists Association that indicates that resilient people reported higher life satisfaction, which to me is really the gem and the nugget in all of this, and stronger social connections. So the more connected we are, the better our life satisfaction is, the better our experience of the day-to-day is. So resilience and neuroplasticity, which is the last little part that I'll go on before I give you some kind of practical little tools to work around with it. So neuroplasticity is hold on, let me put a little slide up. I'm just learning how to use my slides, as you can tell. Oh, there we go. That's my paper I should have had up when I was chatting about it. But so neuroplasticity is basically the brain's ability to rewire itself. And I chat about that quite a bit because a lot of the chats that I have are around change, adaptation, transformation. And at the basis of that really will be neuroplasticity. So it's the brain's ability to reorganize itself. So there's thought patterns is not just a fancy word, but if you were to look at the circuitry of your brain, the way that it lights up is in particular patterns. So the more we repeat particular thought patterns, the more ingrained they become, and the stronger the neural connections in the brain are with it. So when individuals experience stress, for example, their brain adapts by altering those pathways to process emotion, cope with adversity, and find solutions in an individual with resilience. So to put it very, very simply, the more we repeat a particular pattern, the more ingrained it gets. Like, when you have a wheelbarrow in a muddy path, if you're using it every day, that pathway becomes more ingrained. It becomes easier for you to travel with the wheelbarrow. Now, that's brilliant if you want to get somewhere quickly in the brain, but if it's a particular thought pattern that doesn't serve you, it's a little bit more difficult to change it. So where neuroplasticity and changing the brain, reorganizing the brain comes in brilliantly is that's basically what resilience is. Resilience is teaching your brain to not go into particular thought patterns of, oh God, aren't I the worst person in the world because I wasn't amazing at a task the first time that I tried it. But instead it teaches the brain to go, no big deal. Let's not engage our emotional circuitry with this to start going into an overwhelm and into a tailspin. Rather, it teaches us to strengthen regions involved in emotional regulation, decision-making, like our prefrontal cortex. This reduces the stress activity in the brain. This allows us to take, situations where we need to adapt much easier because the brain's basically quite used to it. It goes, oh yeah, we've done this loads of time. No big deal. I tried that. God, wasn't I terrible at it? Of course I was. I'd never tried it before. So what it does is by adopting this particular mindset, right, and moving away from the kind of high stress and high overwhelmed of that fixed mindset of I have to be great at something the first time around, what you're doing is you're giving your brain evidence that this is fine, that failing forward is brilliant, and you're building resilience. You're building an adaptability to move with change. Over time, what that does is it gives you evidence that actually you're well able for it. So I would say start small with these type of things. Give yourself evidence that you're well able to adapt to particular changes, that you're well able to learn new skills, that it's not the end of the world if you don't have skills right off the bat. A very, very good way to help your brain not peak its anxiety, not peak its stress, is to start to cultivate emotional awareness. Now, I could do a whole different talk on emotional awareness, but for the sake of brevity, 25 minutes in. What I'd say is giving yourself 5 minutes a day to just tap in and say, how am I feeling? That's emotional awareness. Now, you'd be surprised how many of us are on autopilot most of our days and don't give ourselves 5 minutes to tap in and go, how am I feeling right now? Oh, jeepers, I'm actually quite stressed. Maybe I should take a step back and not write the email I was about to with lots of exclamation marks and, drumming, tapping levels of anger when I'm typing. Checking in with yourself. You're going about your day checking in. I'm actually a little bit angry. What am I angry about? This, that, and the other thing. This helps you get back in the driver's seat and not be totally puppeted by whatever is going on in the outside world. This allows you to go, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Now I can make an internal locus of control decision on how I'm feeling. The other part of that is knowing that just because you're feeling something doesn't mean you particularly need to act on it. Now, the difficulty with that as human beings is that when we don't know, when it's not in our awareness, we have a tendency to autopilot, behave and respond to that. Primary example is if you're in the middle of a discussion with a family member or a spouse and somebody tells you to calm down and you fly off the handle. That's basically a behavior not acknowledging the fact that you are very, very peaked, very angry, very defensive, all of these types of behaviors. Now, of course, the fact that they've said it to you is a whole different ballgame than picking it up for yourselves. But emotional awareness and understanding how you're feeling day by day in various moments throughout the day, step 1 to resilience. It allows you to make grounded decisions on how you are about to behave and how you are about to respond to outside stimulus from a place of internal locus of control. So some people go about that through mindfulness. I like just checking in, various points in the day. I'll go, check in. How am I feeling? Okay, cool. Because actually, most of us go through our day without particularly checking in on that. For some people that can find that not for them. Journaling is great for that, and it helps to reflect on challenging experiences, particularly if there's a big old setback that you find yourself quite upset by. So giving yourself the kind of mental clarity of distilling all of the noise into a sentence, that helps to kind of take the charge out of that stress and overwhelm, and give yourself column of lessons learned, strengths used. That's a resilience mindset. That's taking a step back, going, look, I can't change what happened now, but I can change what happens next. Things like, those are the main two. Those are the main two that would be great to focus on, is really getting into the habit of checking in with yourself and getting into the habit of, failing forward, basically. So that's a little bit about resilience. I hope that you found this helpful. And with a lot of these things, they're practices. It's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing thing that you're basically retraining your brain on a constant basis. And it starts with a commitment to wanting to do that, basically. It starts with a commitment of going, I would like to do better in my performances. I would like to do better in various avenues. I would like my experience to be better. I would like to feel less stressed. I would strongly recommend starting up very, very gently resilience practices for yourself. Right? I hope that you found this helpful. Any comments or questions, please fire ahead. Otherwise, I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day. I'll get rid of my little banner because I always leave them up accidentally. And we'll be chatting to you in 2 weeks. Bye now.